and welcome to the Drax Files Radio Hour. My name is Drax Dupre. Today, the first part of the definitive overview of what's happening in consumer VR and virtual worlds in 2016, which has been touted the year of VR. Sorry for the noise here. A whole bunch of papers. We got together yesterday with Joe Yardley, Josh Farkash, and Roblem VR in Second Life at the Pen, which is an awesome live venue in Bay City, and started discussing this, but we were running late. People were running late, and I had to film right after, so it's a short show, and we just couldn't cover even maybe, 20% of what the state of affairs is in VR. So we're going to do a follow-up. We're going to open up the floor also. There's space for about 20 people at the Pen. So we're going to tape it in world as well and stream it live on YouTube and then put it here up on the podcast. So you are welcome to show up. Just watch this space and my in-world group. Josh Farkash, of course, from Cubicle Ninjas. We had him on the show. This is a design firm out of Chicago. They make VR experiences and websites and all sorts of things. Really cool stuff. A meditation experience that I find amazing. Roblem VR is a entrepreneur in Second Life. We link to all his various brands on the blog. Yes, there are various. And he is also, I think, for me, one of the best aggregates of VR news in the SL context, because he's very much in SL still, has no plan on leaving, but he's also embracing VR. And as I will say in the coming discussion is that I think we can all get along. So yeah, and thanks for the response to the April Fool's joke. Of course, I'm not going anywhere, and it was brutal. I think Joe Yardley and Marianne McKenna, very brutal sort of roasters. We had no idea where we're going to go with this April Fool's little joke, but it was hurtful that they took the show away from me. I wanted to quit, but they fired me. So thanks for that, and thanks for listening. Just in general, I'm getting all teary-eyed that all this response is just awesome. So we're going to go to the show that we taped in World yesterday in just a second. Real quick, you can become a sponsor with us, of course, because we're listener-sponsored, and that's how the show works. That's how this enables me to get the guests that I want to bring to you. Takes a lot of time, takes a lot of preparation. Become a sponsor with us. If you have a business, you can have your own banners displayed on the website and mentioned every single show. You can also take out a voluntary subscription for $100 Linden per month. That's $25 Linden per show. And we'll send you a subscription device made by Chris Lehman. On my Dragster merch store on Marketplace, we'll have an item coming next week that you can put up if you have land that kind of promotes the show. It's a really cool thing. You can get in touch with us. Let us know what's happening. On Skype, you can leave us a voicemail anytime. radio@draxfiles.com. And the avatar Drax Files is in world all the time and wants to get your messages. All right, let's move straight to the body of the show with a little introduction. Here is Josh Farkash, who joined us on the panel at the Pen. And then we'll go over to Roblem VR. And don't despair, because Joe is not there, and then she drops in halfway through the show, as it is Second Life custom. Out of thin air, she came in. Here is Josh Farkash.
I'm Josh Farkas, and I'm the CEO of Cubicle Ninjas, and we are a design and development agency, and we build a lot in different creative areas, but one area of focus for us has been augmented reality and virtual reality. So it's always cool to see different virtual worlds like SL.
And you've been so you guys work with Unity and you deploy stuff for all the major platforms right now, Gear VR and Cardboard, I guess. But so you're not doing anything specific in Second Life. But it's funny because last time we spoke, and I wasn't aware of this, you have been dabbling in SL, or you have maintained an avatar over the years, just sort of on the sidelines, like on standby, or what's your relationship with SL?
It's funny because I think I've had like 5 or 6 Second Life accounts like over the years. I'll like start one up and just kind of hop in and look around and see like, and I gotta say like so for kind of this conversation, it was like my yearly, okay, I'm gonna hop back into Second Life and see what it's like. And I don't know what it is, but I think like the onboarding process is a lot easier and more fun, and
Mm.
it just seemed a lot more natural this time. So I think it's definitely, the user experience is definitely getting better. I'm sticking around a little bit longer, but I am in day 2, so we'll see how far it lasts this time. So
It's funny because it's still. I'll get to you, Rob, in a second. But I just want to say that it's funny that a lot of people are kind of, as we're going to talk about this. I want to have your opinion about the misperception of SL with the new VR sort of crowd, and you hear all sorts of things. I hear a lot of good acknowledgement, like, Second Life paved the way in terms of testing out certain things, and it's always used sort of in the past tense. But a lot of people would have no clue that it is a user-created universe. And I just spoke to Kiana Ryder from Mad P Productions, who launched a new game. And Rob, I know that you're familiar with them. And they made 2,000 US dollars in 48 hours with an immersive game. So they sell an entrance fee basically. If you want to buy the experience, you buy a HUD. And so they charge, I don't know what they charge, maybe like one US dollar. And so with these micropayments, they were able to make that kind of revenue. And that's what I want to discuss in the hour. Because VR is awesome what's happening, but it doesn't really have a way to create um, with in-world currency sort of a business model. But I'm completely all over the place, getting ahead of myself. Rob, please introduce yourself.
I'm Robert Crasco. I go by Robin VR in World and Online. Um, I'm an independent developer and VR entrepreneur. Right now, I run a in-world brand called Hardware, where I sell mesh items, full-print mesh items. My partner, Ivy Deschanel, she has a store called Snatch. It's one of the more popular women's clothing stores.
That's right.
And we make all of our income off of SL. Our day-to-day,
oh,
this is what we do every day.
Hmm.
And obviously, we're branching out into trying to do some more, stuff outside of Second Life, and in the general VR community. I'm working with the Unity, trying to learn C Sharp, which is the stickler point, but trying to do some stuff with cardboard and eventually move up to some of the headsets.
And this is amazing, Rob. This is something that people really kind of then are somewhat shocked when you say, "Well, what? You make your living with virtual goods? How does that work?" Um, and so I sometimes, I put my foot in my mouth sometimes on Twitter or other forums, where the crop of new VR enthusiasts kind of is oblivious and a little, like I hinted at, maybe a little bit, maybe disrespectful to SL as I kind of experience it. And then I go like, do you guys even know what's possible? And then I admit I get a little childish, but you are really you tweet a lot about the new stuff. How do you get along with? Do you have these types of interactions with new VR people, Rob? That where you, and how do you deal with them? I mean, are you sort of gently sort of, kid? Let me sit you down. Let me tell you. I mean, how do you deal with that when they go like, "Yeah, I know it's a
Um,
chat room for old people."
well, I mean, most people have a weird sense about SL because through the hype cycle, the stories that came out were, a lot of them were outrageous and very fringy sounding, and a lot of people. And then there's always like the talk that, well, obviously SL's not around anymore, or
Mm,
isn't really around. And I'm like, there's a million people that are regular users of SL. Concurrency is 40,000, 70,000 people at once. They're on
yeah.
platform all together at one time. So I mean, that's far from anything that's any of the new stuff coming out. Now, I'm very happy to see little floating heads in some of these new worlds, that you have get very triangulated, you know, sets and stuff like that. But it's fine. Let them all come in and let them. I think we can mix it up. I'm very enthusiastic with the influx of people that are like, oh yeah, virtual world, that makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Once I understand, I could have a headset on and look around. And it's like, yes, that's what we do.
Hmm.
We've been doing it for a while. It's over a decade now. So,
Mm.
I just try to break bread and smoke the peace pipe and keep everybody together.
I think that's a good approach. It's a lot better than sort of you kids with your new little games. We had vinyl and it sounded so much better. Josh, how do you perceive this? If this is something that comes up at all about SL, or is that even a subject matter that, oh yeah, I remember there was some sort of world thing. Um, is that on the radar with people that you talk about sometimes, or?
I don't think so, and I think it's less of an issue around kind of what they have preconceived ideas about Second Life, but it's probably more just it's like this culture and obsession with the new. And if it's like not the hottest, latest new thing off the presses, then I think it can, oh, that's last week's news, that's old. And so I think it happens to everything. What I do think though is it provides a really awesome opportunity with all these kind of with some of the new kind of advancements, because it just opens up the big challenge that's happening right now is content, and that's what Second Life really excels at. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they're hopefully able to kind of continue to position themselves and saying, hey, we've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
Here's a bunch of ways, because and effectively this is the metaverse that everybody's always wanted. They just don't even know it's kind of sitting there. So,
And let's spell it out. Why is Second Life successful with content? And I'm gonna get off this bandwagon. Enough about waxing like, oh, we're the greatest. That I know that's how I come across. A lot of people say that, including my wife. But the fact, and I think you're hinting at that, is that this stuff is user created, and I firmly believe that VR in the future, the successful platforms or worlds or whatever, have to make it very, very easy and straightforward for people to be at the table alongside with more experienced developers to create their own stuff, right? I mean, this is what makes Second Life still successful. That has not been. I mean, a lot of people build something, we don't know what they're building. I mean, we know that Linden Lab is building Project Sansa, but we don't know what the others are building. But talk about you as a developer. What's your relationship to a future where everybody can do that stuff, like they're doing with websites now? Because I remember, I mean, you offered me a very good deal on a website because you guys make awesome websites. They're awesome, but I didn't have the budget, so I could, okay, I'm going to do my own one with Squarespace. Now, how is that going to be with VR? Um, what's your relationship to empowering the individual? Do you even want
I
it
think that's
empowered?
the most exciting. Yeah, I mean, at least from our point of view, I mean, I think it's so exciting. I think that there's some things that that a dedicated team can do really, really well, but there's a lot of stuff that just wouldn't be worth the time, energy, or money for an organization, or even an individual or two to do. And so that's what I think. Like, user generated content is. That's where kind of super interesting, weird stuff that may be hyper personal and maybe more successful in a lot of ways, because it doesn't need to be an immediate commercial success. It could be something that's a little bit more interesting or unique or personal in art. And I think it's going to happen. I do think it's a longer path to that, eventually, than I'd love it to happen in the next year, but I think finding ways. Right now, we're still trying to find the language of virtual reality and how to properly use this tool to provide really interesting experiences. So I think it'll be a little bit of time before we get like the WYSIWYG of VR. But that said, things like the Vive and other touch-based controls like Oculus Touch I make that so much more fun than I think than other things, like using your hands to hold things and to walk around them and to scale them. It's going to make content creation just as much fun as content consumption, and so it'll be cool to see that happen.
Yeah, I mean, and Rob, how do you feel about that empowering? I mean, your sense. I mean, you are the one of those examples where the empowerment worked, right? I mean, I'm assuming that you are self-taught, or did you graduate from some design school?
Oh, I'm self-taught. I've been playing around with 3D design packages and VRML back in the 90s. So I've been playing around with this stuff for a while. Prior to SL, I was in the virtual world there.
Oh
It's
yeah.
at there.com. And I was frustrated because they didn't let you create.
Hmm.
Or if you wanted to create, it was a huge process, to like go through, some kind of a paid program or whatever. And you just couldn't build things on your own. And then when I heard about Second Life, I immediately came over and I was like, this is exactly what I want. I want to have the freedom to build my own stuff, because I knew enough about 3D design at that point that it's definitely, as SL has progressed its 3D hardware ability, its abilities, I've been able to keep up with that, and now I
Hmm.
do stuff in Maya and 3D Max, and I think it's good to have that in the hands of the people because you don't know what the next big thing's going to be.
Hmm.
Like if you've got a really tight design lab, it's like, okay, we're going to build this spaceship and fill it with space stuff and this and that. You may not be thinking about steampunk or some of these other things that are coming in
Hmm.
where other people are thinking about that stuff and they know what will be popular probably before your group does. You know?
Right. Um, I was gonna say because Josh hinted at this, so we have really impressive demos, and we talked about it on the show about editing in VR. The Unity demo, the conference in LA, was impressive. Unreal has that same function. Uh, I hope that Linden Lab is on track with Project Sansar adding these things. It almost seems like it's moving so fast that when you, if let's say you don't have that function, whatever comes next, the function to kind of live build with the controllers inside the world and sort of stretching and doing stuff like we do with Prims here, then any type of world or design engine or world that empowers people to build is going to be obsolete. So the race is really on. So we know that that people and other different companies are building this stuff. What is the state of affairs though right now? That's I want to get your sense because there's also some critique about the hype. Um, Josh, is 2016 the year when consumer VR is going to go big? Because we've been here before, not we, because we haven't even probably been born. I guess the first time we were born, but we were little children. I mean, there was a hype in the 80s, there was a hype in the 90s. The gear was so heavy that you could get neck cramps, of course. Uh, I know the answer is yeah, but now we have this. The cameras are small enough. The technology is there. It's gonna go big. What do you think? Is it really gonna cross over to the mainstream, or is it gonna be the 3D television?
I think the way I think about it a lot is the internet. I think people are comparing it to mobile in that it's going to be this just massive revolution, and in 5 years everybody's going to have one of these in their house, and I don't think that's true. I think it's going to be a slower burn, something along the lines of like the internet, where we're in the early days. The first devices that for consumers are shipping, and they're going to be these small communities of people who are more enthusiasts, and it's going to take 10 years for this stuff to actually get to a point where there are enough applications and use cases. But I do think that there are certain industries that are going to kind of take and run with it. We're seeing a lot in marketing and sales, but I also think things like healthcare and tourism are really going to kind of be the drivers, entertainment obviously, but are going to be the drivers into getting this into consumers' hands. So I would say, the hype cycle is massive, and it always deserves to be looked at with skepticism. But I do think that this is the real deal this time. I think it's cost effective, and the experience you can get is really wonderful. So it's just a matter of timelines, calendars. Is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? But I do think this is the path that's going to click with the mainstream audience finally.
Every Second Lifer remembers, though, and I know it may be a flawed comparison, but everybody remembers, Rob, when marketing budgets were there to create ideas that were, in hindsight, just incredibly dumb. Just an incredibly dumb and unimaginative use of this space, and they totally backfired because, why would you log into an Adidas store? that is totally empty. Why would you go into SL to buy virtual shoes at a mall where there is not even anybody you can talk to? That's just one example that backfired, and then frankly, a lot of these ideas and the business press and the economic press is, in my mind, responsible for creating that hype in the first place. And then, of course, ironically, they are now trashing the platform, or have been for a while. Can't this happen again now, Rob? I mean, just in terms of like marketing, if it's used for marketing, like really
I
bad
think.
ideas, marketing
Well, I
people.
mean, obviously, there's going to be bad ideas
I
out there
have
too.
something against marketing people. I have full disclosure.
Oh goodness,
I'm very
that's bad.
judgmental.
Half my background's in marketing.
No, you I love, Rob. I mean, there's always exceptions. I have a banker who lives on the third floor in the same building. I love him too. So one banker I love. No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to come from different angles. So you're going to start seeing ads in some of the VR games to support them. Obviously, cardboard is ready-made for doing promotions. You can send out a bunch of little headsets and have a built-in experience that everybody checks out. Mountain Dew's done some marketing stuff at some like the X Games and stuff like that. Using Oculus and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of different ways to go at it. Where what was SL going to do for Pepsi?
That's
They
right.
open up an island and you can get a virtual Pepsi bottle or whatever. But what else are you going to do with that? Nothing, because it didn't have a good relationship with the real world. I think now that it's not just virtual worlds, it's individual experiences, and going into collaborative spaces and private spaces. I think there's just a lot more out there for like a different like individual campaigns to bite onto, rather than there's the island where there's no one there and there's some marketing material on the walls, but who cares?
Okay,
You
but
know?
I could say the same thing. Now, listen. Okay, sure. I can now look at that Coke bottle on my Google Cardboard.
Yep.
But what's the difference? It's the same thing. I mean, it looks a little bit sharper and higher visual fidelity, but it could be. My point is that it could be the same stale stupidity of ideas, because there are other examples of, I think, that were actually good ideas. Remember the I Am Legend tie-in for the movie? There was an entire game created in SL that was extremely compelling, and it was there to promote the film. Um, and but it created something that was very specific to SL as a virtual world where you could be expressing yourself, a very social thing, that kind of thing. I'm just saying that just because the experience is more immediate and, of course, a lot higher fidelity and a lot more immersive with HMDs and controllers, I I don't think it necessarily goes along with an understanding of the medium. And I think Josh hinted at that earlier too, because we got to kind of try out stuff. We don't know what's going to work.
I think you're right, though. I mean, I think at the end, there's going to be a lot of bad stuff. And I think that is just natural with any new medium. And I'm excited for that, because I think the quicker we get that period out of the way, the
Yeah,
more what
that's a
really
good point.
works. And I think what's cool is what sets a VR experience apart is when you are in awe, when you are feeling like you've never done this before. And it's now been 2 years since we've been playing in VR, like every day, trying new experiences. And really, you'll eventually hit a limit, right? You'll get to this point where this coolness of this tech will kind of wear off, and you'll be like, oh, most of these ideas are dumb. But the reality is, I think that what makes virtual reality so compelling is that it sounds dumb on paper, but when you try it, you help, but kind of goes in the jaw a little bit. And so that's the thing, is continuing to, even if it's marketing or whatever it is, but make sure those experiences are worthy of this medium to kind of bring, something new to the table.
And I've seen I mean, again, I mean, I've seen stuff that has to be seen. I was at Sundance, and there were a lot of things in the realm of immersive journalism where, when you put the goggles on, that it's a no-brainer, that it's just amazing. Um, yeah, I want to say hi to Silas Maryland. He's my neighbor in Second Life, and he's right here in the audience. We didn't really publicize this. Uh, Oh, Joe is just IMing me. She might come, but we have only 15 minutes left. We're doing a live show, and the perils of the live show. Here's Silas. Silas is typing. He's a native cat. Um, okay, so you guys
Yeah.
are making good points. Now, I want to address, though, since we're on that subject, let's bring Joe in here. Um, if a journalist or a self-proclaimed journalist, Rob, by the name of Hamlet Wagner James Al, has written on his New World Notes blog that we on this show sometimes call New World Tropes. Hi, Joe. Take a seat. We're in the middle
Hello.
of the live stream, um, and we're gonna do another. Oops, you're sitting there with Rob.
Hello there.
Oh dear. Sorry, I do apologise.
She's very quick on the draw. So, Rob, we talked earlier before we went on the air. So, Hamlet Wagner James Al, that the Second Life audience certainly knows, has written an op-ed or an opinion piece or whatnot, whatever they call it, over at the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal. And he wrote that VR is just not going to work out. And as a little side stab, he wrote, of course, that SL didn't work out, and that's sort of the proof is right there. SL was touted as the awesome thing, and VR doesn't work. So isn't Hamlet right? I mean, he's a journalist. He saw it happening with SL.
Yeah. Oh well. He had his short stint as an SL employee.
Wait a
And
minute. In the
after that,
opinion piece, he said he'd helped launch Second Life, is what he said.
Yeah, without him, there would be no Second Life.
That's right,
It
Joe.
seems.
Well, then isn't this actually his fault then?
Yeah, I
I
think
mean,
so.
I don't understand how he can just separate himself so readily. And say, well, I helped launch this wonderful thing, but wow, doesn't it suck now that I'm not there? I'm like, no, you were an employee. You had, he's an embedded reporter. Now I know now he's rebranding himself as an SL entrepreneur at the time, but he was an embedded reporter with the lab, and did some positive reporting, and then at some point they had to let him go for whatever reason, and now he's a disgruntled employee.
Oh. Oh dear.
That's my spin on it.
Joe, what do you
That's
think?
he can't get over the lab still around. Every year he predicts the downfall, and it still hasn't happened.
It's very tabloidy. I'm on the record of saying this, and Hamlet, if you're listening, you're welcome to come on the show and sort of talk, debate me one-on-one on this. I think there's a huge difference between investigative journalism and tabloid journalism that is essentially clickbait. But before we go into sort of... Joe, your 2 cents real quick. We have about 15 more minutes. Your 2 cents on the Hamlet Wall Street Journal piece.
Well, I think it's absolutely fine to be cynical and very careful and cautious when it comes to virtual reality. We should have to make sure that we don't get overexcited. But, there are so many other things that he's written that just, don't really make sense, or they are on the edge of making sense, because this entire thing of Second Life failing, we've talked about it so many times.
Yeah.
How has it failed? It's been here for 13 years. It's not become the magic thing that the press thought it would be. We all agree on that. But it went from a little over 1 million users to a little under 1 million users.
Sorry to cut you off, Joe, but you're absolutely
sorry.
right. We did go over that, and before we
Exactly.
let Hamlet dictate what we talk about, just like Trump dictates what the mainstream press is talking about, I'm going to take our show back, and we're going to talk about more interesting things. For
Good idea.
example, what do you guys think? I want to start with Josh. There was an article in the Independent that when you have Oculus on and you're engaged in whatever experience, Oculus and Facebook by extension, which owns Oculus, knows what you're doing and is collecting data on you. Now, should we be completely outraged, or should we say, well, this is just the price to pay for it? I'm gonna link.
Shall we pretend we're surprised?
Yeah, I'm gonna link on our blog also a couple of articles from Aral Balkan, who's an independent developer, really an activist in sort of reclaiming big data for us, and also Evgeny Mozorov, who wrote an article where he talks about surveillance capitalism and about the.
Mm.
Sorry, I'm mixing up the two. That was actually Aran with surveillance capitalism, but Evgeny was talking about that these corporations with the big data model rule us. But anyway, in terms of VR, we know that Facebook does it. What are your feelings about that though, Josh? That we are now even further sort of in the hands of companies that monetize our data.
Yeah, I think the disclaimer for me would be I don't have a Facebook account. I've never had a Facebook account because I am afraid of how they use that data. As developers, we've built those apps and we can see what they get, and it is actually really scary. But as Oculus, as virtual reality creators, I've read those terms, and to be honest, I there are some things that kind of sound wacky, but in all actuality, they're to me, they're fairly benign until they actually start figuring out a way to monetize. So at the moment, I think they're just premature. So I would say for me, it doesn't hold up my fact of enjoying this wonderful new technology. I think what I like is that the community is shouting about it, that people are really angry about it, because that's how you get change. And so my hope is we continue to keep a real close eye to that, make sure that they don't push those boundaries, but not let us limit the fun and the potential that could be had in these devices.
That is. I completely agree with you, especially about the community. But on the other hand, and I'm very critical of Facebook, although I'm a Facebook user. But you just said you're not a Facebook user because of those reasons. But then how can you say let's have fun in VR? I mean, I think it's a lot scarier. I mean, there's no shortage of dystopian novels about this stuff. How when we actually defer even more. I mean, in the future metaverse, or when we have a ubiquitous VR or AR integration, it's going to be way more impactful than what Facebook is now.
I agree. I agree. I think the
I mean, I don't have a
differentiator is
solution. Let me just say that. I mean, I don't know. I'm talking like I know everything. I'm just a little concerned.
the only thing for me is the amount of data that you can get from your current like Oculus account is your real name and your kind of the location you're at.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And that's pretty much it. Whereas if had you signed in with your Facebook account, which has significant data, then I think that would be a real genuine concern. And I do think that's coming. So I think it's a matter of time till that happens. But at the moment, there's not much they can market you to because they don't have much to pull from outside of maybe tracking what you look at, which is kind of useless right now. So
I see. So, but if they tie that together with what the data they have on Facebook, and there is absolutely no reason why they shouldn't do that, then it gets scary.
yes. It starts to get a little confusing because, like, for example, we could then segment you by what you do, what your income level is, what your gender is, how long you've been married, all these sorts of things. And then we can dynamically load content based on that. So, let's say you live in a certain area and we need to push you towards certain things. A marketer can then choose, that, oh, you look forward, so the forward view is going to show this sorts of model that's ad towards whatever that is. And I mean, that's not a potential that's certainly going to happen.
Yeah, I think
It's
that's absolutely going to happen. I wonder because
It's
I'm
gonna,
sorry. Go ahead,
it's going
Joe.
to get scary. It's going to get scary if it becomes impossible to lie. For instance, everyone who I know who uses Facebook lies to Facebook. I mean,
Well, if
somehow
they're
Facebook
still
thinks
on there,
that
I
I'm
mean,
a,
you're an 80-year-old
Yeah.
German
oh yeah,
woman. I know.
yeah. They think I'm I get advertisement for 8-year-old women.
But listen,
Which is quite
but Joe,
scary.
but Joe, you're on there, and it's kind of a surprise that you're on there. I mean, you're lucky because there was a purge of thousands and thousands of Second Life avatars.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
they're
Yeah,
actively closing accounts.
absolutely. I've vanished once or twice as well. But that's something I'm willing to do. It never happened to my real life account though, even though that too is full of lies.
You're some persistent 80-year-old woman that you came back after they closed your account. That's cool.
I want to use my Facebook.
Germans don't have that accent.
Ich will mein Facebook brauchen.
Ich bin eine
Du
Facebook.
Kartoffelkopf.
Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I have a 10 a.m. appointment for the next Drax Files, so we have to wrap it up in 7 minutes. Rob, your take on dystopian visions of VR? Are you concerned about that, or what do you think? Especially, I wanted to get your take on Linden Lab's role in this with Project Sensor, because we talk about this on the show often. I believe that Linden Lab has a great opportunity to position themselves in a way where they say, you know what, you have more privacy, you have more agency over who you want to be in these worlds with our world versus, let's say, Face World, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, that all depends upon if they actually go in that direction with Sansar, because we don't know yet, do we? But I think I kind of agree with Josh that there's a certain amount that you're going to expect of data, that your personal information that you're going to end up giving to whoever the powers that be. But it's also very important to always be vigilant that it's not too much, and that they're not getting too invasive, and to push back and let people know, well, this is what they're trying to get from you. Are you comfortable with that? Are you comfortable with your birthday and all your relationships, and your sex and your gender identity and all of this stuff being used by marketers every single time you walk into a virtual world?
Well, your history
That
of
can be a big turnoff
health,
for a lot of it.
your history of
Yeah,
health,
yeah,
your history
exactly.
of political affiliations.
Yeah, and
all
I
that
mean, a lot
good
of people
stuff.
just give that stuff up to Facebook without any thought.
You're right.
And it could be a lot more. Like, I mean, obviously right now you can't see too much. You can see where people are looking and things of that nature, but it could definitely go down a bad path if we're not vigilant about it. But that's just how things are these days. You have to look for these cracks to open up and look to fill them in.
We have to wrap it up, and Joe, I know you have a bunch of things to say, and I'm going to do that in my outro, because there's a magnificent video about 1920s Berlin. I'm going to mention that in detail. We had some tier reduction. Linden Lab announced tier reduction. We're going to link to that. We're going to talk about that in detail next week for sure. What the implications are. Is it a little too late, or is it actually great? Our one view, actually, we have, how many listeners do we have now? 7.5. Loki Elliott has said that this is a great thing, and others have said this is just BS and it's not doing anything. So, oh, by the way, because I'm always camming around here, if you watch the stream, the Dragster Book Club is on Tad Williams' Otherland. We're reading Tad Williams' Otherland, and we're going to discuss it next month, May 15th. And this book is awesome. I just started it. The guy, it was written in 1996, and the guy actually, I think, predicted the Oculus face. Rob and Josh, I'm sure you saw that you have that face when you have the Oculus on, and it looks like the Oculus logo, like the imprint that leaves on your face because of the pressure. And in the book, like on page 50, they describing this world, and when people are in there too long, they have pressure sores, and it's funny. So yeah. Last words, Josh, on are you gonna come back to SL maybe sometime? Or are you gonna just leave us here in our ghetto? Are we ghettoized? Are we gonna just be sort of a blimp in the history? Not blimp, a blip. Joe deals in blimps.
Zeppelin.
Yeah, but yeah, I think the cool thing that's going to happen is I really hope, from a marketing perspective, that Linden uses the wonderful content and community that's here and finds a way to translate that, because there's this existing world that not a lot of people are thinking about, and this is just yet another chance for it to be reborn. So, I hear a lot about Project Sansar, but it's like, what about just using this on a cardboard or some other way for people to experience it? So it's cool, and I'm definitely going to continue to play around. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the tragedy is that SL Go died and was the company was sold to Sony. We talked about this. I'm still really sad about it because SL Go made it possible that Second Life really ran in the highest fidelity on all different mobile devices, which could have worked with cardboard as well. Rob, your thoughts? Will SL be forgotten when VR hits?
I don't think so. I think it's going to definitely be like a roadmap where you can say that this is sort of the precursors to some of the other to like Sansar and some of the other worlds that are being built.
It will be like vinyl. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's going to be like vinyl. We're going to be exclusive vinyl clubs.
Virtual classic.
Yeah.
Retro.
Well, I'm still playing my records shellac on a gramophone, so that all sounds very.
Joe, an 80-year-old German woman that plays gramophones is not on the radar of marketing departments. I'm sorry.
Excellent. Nobody's selling me anything except maybe Zeppelin tickets
and cigarettes.
Oh, of course.
Sorry, Rob, I interrupted you. Finish your thought, please.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the stuff that we're doing still doing. We're kind of talking about it in past tense. I mean, I think it's important to the whole evolution of it, and I think you probably wouldn't be seeing some of the new virtual worlds pop up if SL hadn't been the kind of long-term success that it has been.
We haven't even spoken about
that and say, look,
you're right,
people really spend a lot of time in this world, so these other worlds could definitely succeed too. Because none of the other ones did. Blue Mars failed, and There.com went away. But SL is definitely the one you point to and go, yeah, there's still like 1 million people in there messing around. So.
Now we see. I'm bummed that I really have to wrap it up because now we haven't even spoken about that aspect. If it's in fact, if there is in fact a larger than 1 million interested people for places like high fidelity, for instance, or the sort of the next iteration of whatever the next generation virtual world is always what Ebbe says, because maybe people, this is a whole nother discussion about maybe people are not interested in building, people are, masses of people. I mean, I obviously object to that.
I think we can see it. We can see at Second Life how many people try to join it and how many people have tried it in the past. I think these are all people who at least are interested and curious.
Yeah.
And even though, their experience didn't work out, I think many of those would want to try again and would at least be interested in giving Sansar a go or high fidelity.
No, but I also meant in general, is there this distinction? We talk about it on the podcast all the time. Is there just a finite number of people who enjoy making things on their own? I just listened to a Philip Rosedale interview from 2007 on the CNN Future Summit or whatever that program was. I'm going to link to it on the blog, where he says that we have been conditioned to believe there's a creator class and then there's sort of the consumer class, and he wants to kind of destroy that notion, make everyone a creator. I love that. That's like Josh said earlier. I mean, I really, even like in the music field, a lot of my musician friends or recording engineers, they bitch about that all the time. They go like, oh, people don't record real good music anymore because they think they can do it themselves in their little garage and with their GarageBand software. I think that's really empowering, right?
Yeah, but there will always be people who are not interested in creating. I mean, out of the four of us here, you're a musician. I can play the thin whistle, but I'm absolutely not interested in, recording any music. I'm just going to listen to it.
But you're creative in other ways.
Same with Second Life.
Yeah, but we're all...
Well, everyone's creative in some way, but doesn't mean they have to bring it into Second Life.
Yes, it does, Joe. Now we're going to end on a fight. No. Damn. I just want us to get along.
Never.
Yeah, indeed, we just want to get along. And wouldn't you know it, of course, Josh's last name is pronounced Farkas, not Farkas. Sorry, but But that was our discussion on VR, virtual reality, as it stands in 2016. Like I said, we were running late. We started late and we had to quit really kind of on the dot. So we're going to do a next week, a second installment of sort of the overview, because I really wanted to get an overview of kind of what devices are available, what software is available, and where do we stand really concretely with what's available in terms of user engagement and democratizing those tools. So that's going to be next week. Watch the groups and watch Twitter and watch in-world messages. We'll tape this again at the Pen. And you're welcome to come. We're going to cap it at maybe 20 people when it's getting too full and too laggy. But you're welcome to come. And also, we're going to stream it on YouTube before we put it on the show. A couple things before we go out today. We're going to link to this, of course. Linden Lab lowers tier. Joe Yardley had a post on that with a good discussion in the comments going on. We'll discuss this also more in depth next week. Peppa Cometa has an awesome video about Berlin. We're going to link to it. It's a fabulous mood piece. What else? IKEA uses VR. We know that was one of my proposed April Fool's jokes, actually, that Ebba Altberg is leaving Linden Lab and heads over to IKEA to head their VR division to design furniture. But those are just a couple of news items. We're going to go into bigger news next week. And also congratulations to the team at Mad P Games. Their immersive game, The Interview, is really awesome. And it was extremely successful on the opening weekend. And that goes to show you that a supposedly dead platform can enable quite good revenue. I don't have any numbers, and I don't want to throw out numbers that were given to me, but it's a substantial income that was generated, revenue, this first weekend. Of course, it takes a lot of time to develop those games, but it's possible. It is possible in Second Life today. All right, so we're going to go out today with a little bit of outtake of a story I'm working on for the video series. It's about the nonprofit commons in Second Life. It's going to be out at the end of April. And here is Rhiannon Chat-Noir, who is the community manager at Nonprofit Commons, with just a few well-put outtakes that are not going to be in the video, not because they're not good, but because the story went a little elsewhere. But she had a lot of really, really good points to make, and they kind of tie in also with VR a little bit as it stands. That's the show for today. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
My name in Second Life is Rhiannon Chat-Noir, Community Manager of Nonprofit Commons, which is hosted and organized by TechSoup.org and Caravan Studios. And it's a nonprofit community of practice. It was designed to investigate the many ways in which nonprofits might use this space. A lot of people are not tech savvy in Nonprofit Commons. We've tried to make it simpler. The Nonprofit Commons has been around since 2006, and currently we have about 60 plus orgs that have office space. Orgs like Human Bee, Love Foundation, Orange City Deaf Advocacy. We also have lots of local fundraising teams for things like Team Fox or also 1 Billion Rising. The analogy that a lot of people in the physical world might be used to is maybe something like a shopping mall, right? Grouping together folks that are all have one mission or another that focuses on a social good aspect. We meet every Friday morning at 8:30 a.m. Pacific in the Nonprofit Commons Amphitheater. Everybody introduces themselves, and then we dive into a featured presentation, folks within the community and then also guest speakers that we bring in. And then we close off the meetings with an open mic. That sense of space and being there within the environment is very important. Second Life, you can kind of represent and be who you want to be, including what is your, true authentic self. You might be in a place in the world that might not be safe. They're able to come into the space, express themselves in true gender, and then be able to kind of do their work. This is a giant user-generated created space. That also applies to your own avatar. How you represent your avatar can be powerful in regards to aligning that with your mission. Let's say you were a social good nonprofit coming in that was interested in indigenous cultures and in preserving them and outreaching them. You could put together avatars for other folks to experience that, whether that is truly themselves or as a way to kind of further that kind of cultural empathy, what it's like to walk in that person's virtual skin. Virtual worlds are not obsolete because they allow people to get together in these spaces and connect and be immersed and engage in a way that isn't as easily affordable in even other virtual reality technologies at this point. You know, things like Oculus Rift and the Vive headset, check your pick of what other devices that are related to that. They do offer additional immersion into a virtual space, but ultimately they're a technology, right? You know, the power of a virtual world, I think, lies in this idea that there is all these interactions coming into play, and you don't have to worry about developing a game in Unity or, you know, complex hardware technology that your nonprofit is probably not going to have the resources for. You are coming in and plugging into an existing community. Currently, right now, a lot of VR experiences are very solitary, and a lot of the other VR platforms that are multi-user spaces aren't much more sophisticated than the VR talking head spaces of 15 years ago.
The Drax Files Radio Hour with Joe Yardley is a weekly production of Basic Drax Entertainment. The show is supported by Extraordinary Fine Magical Goods, Ionic, Maven Homes, Giza Creations, Botanical, Strawberry Sing, Humanoid Animations, Abranimations, Eros Avatars, Caravel Design, The Cube Republic, the Avazines Publication Family, What Next, Dutchy Furniture, Landscapes Unlimited, Bay Cities You Know for Kids, Dwarfins, Fallen Gods Incorporated, Feroce SL, and Death Row Designs. Contact the show via Skype, DraxFiles, Avatar, DraxFiles, or email radio@draxfiles.com.